It's always a good practice to pre-screen your collected subs before you pre-process them. In a recent video, we talked about using the blink process to assess your subs and your cal datasets and eliminate problems that you run into. Another good pre-screening method, often used after blink analysis, is the SubframeSelector tool. The SubframeSelector will compute a series of metrics that describe attributes for each sub in your capture set. These are then displayed on a plot, and outliers can be easily identified and dealt with. For our video today, I'll be using my LRGB image of NGC 4565, the Needle Galaxy. I wanted to get the sharpest image possible, and to help this along, I wanted to identify and remove those subs that had larger than typical star images. My scopes are set up in the driveway, and they're exposed to the wind. And during the imaging sessions for this particular target, we did have some occasional breezes, and I knew this was not going to help. So screening was an important element to getting the best image possible here. SubframeSelector is used for different purposes. Sometimes what you're trying to do is find the bad frames. And what you're trying to do is find the outliers so you can cull those subs and those images won't be part of the pre-processing. Sometimes you're using it to find good frames. You're trying to identify what the best possible reference frame is for various computations you're going to be doing later on. Another purpose is for determining weights that will be applied to each sub during the image integration process. And there are ways that can be done here that are very customizable. This video is going to explore a very simple use of the SubframeSelector for eliminating outliers. This can be done most accurately when you're dealing with calibrated images. So in this particular case, you would run WBPP and stop short of registration and integration. You would then use the calibrated images for the process we're about to go through. Once you are done and you have just the frames you want to work with, you'll have to run the image registration and image integration processes by hand to complete things. If, on the other hand, you want to use the full WBPP computational path, then you can actually use this on raw data. You may not get precisely the correct answers, but on a relative basis, comparing one frame to the others, it's still very useful for identifying outliers. SubframeSelector is available as a process and as a script. The script is the older version, so I would go with the process. To open this SubframeSelector, go to the Process menu, go to All Processes, and towards the end of the list, you'll see the SubframeSelector. The rightmost panel is the main window that we'll be using to drive the functionality of the tool. And as you see in this drop-down menu, there's 3 functions that it can apply: measuring subframes, outputting subframes, and star detection preview. For our purposes, we're going to be using the first 2, and we're going to start with measure subframes. The second window is the SubframeSelector expressions window. This window allows you to create some very sophisticated expressions that can be used to both select and weight images. In our particular case today, we're not going to be using this, but it is a fascinating area to study for those who want to do more advanced uses of the tool. The final window is the SubframeSelector measurements window. Once we have pulled in our frames and done the computations, this is where we'll see the results and where we'll identify the outliers. In the main panel, we have an area where we're going to be adding the subs that we want to analyze. We also have a section on system parameters, which allows you to enter critical information used in the computation of some of the metrics that will be used here. For our purposes, it's going to be critical that we get the subframe scale correct. We're going to leave the camera gain at a default of 1.0. The camera I'm using is the ASI 2600 mono camera. That's a 16-bit camera, so we'll leave that there. We're going to leave the local midnight at a default value at 24. So the only thing we really have to put in here right now is getting the scale right. In order to get the scale right, this is a combination of the size of the pixel in your sensor and the focal length of your particular telescope. And one easy way to get that, if you don't already have that number at your fingertips, is to use the Astronomy Tools Calculator section. This is the CCD suitability calculator. And for my scope, there was not an entry, but I know the focal length is 1080. So I put that in. I'm using the 2600 camera, and this tells me what the pixel size is in microns. Then it computes a resolution scale of 0.72 arc seconds per pixel. So we'll enter that in here. We'll keep everything else the same. And the final thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to create a directory that we'll be targeting for those images that are approved to be used for the final pre-processing steps. For my purposes here, I created a directory where I'd like to keep it, which I've called approved to. Now this panel is set up, the next thing I want to do is I want to start adding all the subs. And what I want to do is add all the subs for one particular filter. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to go to the data from night 1. We'll go to the lights, and for this example, what we'll do is we'll take all of the luminance images. And there we go. That's for night 1. Now I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm going to add the subs that were captured on night 2 and night 3. Okay, now I have all of my subs, all the luminance subs. I have 96 of them. At this point, I'm ready to do the computations necessary to populate this chart over here. And to do that, I'm going to hit this Global Application button. And you'll see that we'll start a fairly long computational cycle. And we'll cut this out of the video. You'll note here that in some cases I'm getting some purple warnings. And what these warnings are about is the fact that I'm running this in raw data. And because I'm running this on raw data, some of the metadata in the FITS header isn't there that it wants to be there, and so it's warning me about that. It will do its best to compute those parameters, recognizing that this is not calibrated data. It may not be as accurate as we would like it to be, but on a relative basis, it should still do the job. So for our purposes, we can ignore these warnings. Okay, so we have our results. Since we're not going to be using the expressions window, I'm going to just collapse that, and I'm going to make this larger so we can see the data a little bit better. So now we have in this table, we have each subframe, and we have the name, and we have all of the computed parameters that are available to us across the top here. Now what we want to do is make sure that we're taking the index measure, which is basically the sequence, and we have it in ascending order, and that's going to be on the bottom of the graph. Now we want to make sure that we're looking at the right metric for what we're trying to accomplish. Now I'm trying to accomplish getting the sharpest possible image. So the best thing to do here might be to take a look at FWHM, which is a measure of the star size. So we'll create that, and then we can look at this plot. What we can see here is a clothesline plot of every measure in sequence that was captured, and we can see what the measures are. This black line right through here for the center, that's the median value of all the measures. Then this gray zone in here, this represents plus and minus 1 standard deviation for all the data in this particular set. The lighter gray shows us where the plus and minus 2 standard deviations are. Then based on typical statistics, we know that 95% of all the data should be within plus or minus 2 sigma. So what we have here is a good idea where the bulk of the population is, and we can begin to see some outliers up in here. We also have a distribution of these values, and we can see this is a fairly normal distribution with a little bit more on the high end. Now, obviously, we don't really care about the low end. We like super small, tight stars. We're more concerned here on the stars that are getting overly large. And as we look at them, we can see some outliers. We can see an outlier here, 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 and here. We can even see an outlier down here. Now, this is a particularly good outlier, so we're going to leave that one alone. So now when I click on this, it'll actually show me the particular line for that data set. And when I click on it, you notice I went from a check mark to a red cross. I've now eliminated this particular image. If I wanted to get an idea what this image looks like and why it has the measure it has, I can double click on it. It'll open that particular window. Now this is a linear image, so we need to turn on the auto STF. And when we do that, we can see what's going on here. And as I zoom in here, you can actually see that we not only have big stars, we have elongated stars. So this must be one where the wind was kicking things around a little bit, and that's why it has that large measure. Well, that tells us something very important here. This is not an image we want to be including in our set if we can avoid that. Now to compare that, let's go over to this one, and let's open that up. This is the very good one. And as we look at these, we have nice, round, tight stars. So this is a great example of what we really want to deal with. But this ability to pull up individual frames and inspect them is really a nice feature to allow you to interrogate and tie the visual effects to what the metrics are telling us. So my practice on those times when I'm looking at trying to get a very sharp image is to look at the FWHM metric. And sometimes I also look at the eccentricity metric, and sometimes I'll do it for both, and I'll look for the outliers, and I'll click on those. That's now taking them, marking them in the data set as being rejected. And I rejected this one, didn't mean to, so let's undo that one. So now I have a set of images that I don't want to include in my feature set. Now I use FWHM, and I might use eccentricity because I'm looking for sharpness. But what if this was not a galaxy? What if this was a diffuse nebulae? And I wanted to do something similar to that, but I really wanted to get the best signal. Probably what I would do in that particular case is I would look at noise as the primary metric to look at. And I would look for those things that have a very poor noise metric as an outlier and talk about eliminating those. But for sharpness, I'm going to stick with FWHM. Well, now I've selected those images I think I want to remove. I'm ready for the next step here. Now we can go back to the SubframeSelector main screen. Now we're no longer measuring things. Now we want to output the subframes. And in this particular mode, all the ones that have been approved will be copied to a new directory, which is specified down here, and each frame will have a new postfix appended to it as an _A, and this will create a new folder with an approved set of data. Once that has been done, later on when I'm ready to finish the pre-processing, I'll select the frames from that particular folder and know that these are ones that are the best images that I can use for doing the pre-processing steps that remain. Now, in order to execute on this, I'm going to hit the global button. And after a few moments, each of the approved frames is written to the approved folder. And I've now completed another level of pre-screening where I'm ensuring that the data that's going into my image integration is the best data that I can get that'll maximize the sharpness of the image.